Hey everybody, it's Jason Yee here, and I'm the founder of Train 2.0, and I'm really excited to welcome you to this case study where I'm going to share with you how you can really multiply your potential and discover what's holding you back and really see a whole new way of training that is just totally taking the hockey world by storm and really can be taken advantage of for thoughtful and definitely motivated players, parents, and we're going to share that with you today. So let's get started. The title of this case study is How to Become the Best Skater on the Ice Without Years of Training. And, why you might be here is, you might have failed at skating faster or, really you've aimed to be the best skater on the ice. But you might have failed at doing that without, killing yourself in the gym or doing some sort of crazy training. And I want to let you know that it's not your fault, because there's a lot of information out there and it can be really confusing. And many times this information overload keeps you from success. And if you've been concerned in the past that you just can't succeed with improving your skating without some sort of crazy training, I want to put those fears to rest. You can do this, you just need the right person to explain it to you. And some coaches and other players want you to think that skating naturally and effortlessly like a superstar NHLer just isn't possible for you or your kid. I'm here to tell you that they are wrong. They have a lot of their own reasons for wanting you to think that, but it's just not true. So, that's what we're here for. Like, I know you or your kid has a dream of skating and moving like a superstar NHLer, and I want to show you how to make that happen during this case study. So who is this case study for? Well, it's for beginners and advanced players and parents. Really, this is going to be for people from beginner to pro. And, for beginners, you'll find a way to avoid wasting 90% of your time while learning to skate and learning this whole thing. And for advanced players, including pros, you'll learn how to skate faster with way less effort and more control. And you'll learn how to reduce mistakes and make plays more consistently. And for parents, you'll learn how to save money and time on your child's development and have them skate faster and, without making as many mistakes on the ice. And my goal from this case study is for you to see that the only way for you to become a faster and more controlled skater without killing yourself in the gym and working harder and harder is by getting repetitions of superstar NHLers, what we call magic mechanics. And that the only way for you to get those repetitions is through something called mechanics matching. Now, why am I here? I'll put my video on again so you guys can see. That's me in that picture. I wanted to play in the NHL. That was my dream. And, growing up in Canada, that was like a huge, huge, huge dream of mine, like any other Canadian kid. And I really trained my entire life and worked really, really hard to achieve that goal. And the whole time I knew the odds were against me. I'd heard it everywhere, even if you're good, the odds are against you. And I was determined anyway, but definitely scared by that, definitely scared by, knowing that the odds are against me. And, my hard work did pay off. I did well. I was the captain of my teams. I played junior hockey and eventually went to UBC on a scholarship. And, but I wasn't good enough to crack pro. I was good enough college player, but I wasn't good enough to crack pro. And this really hurt, especially after all the work that I put in. That's really what drove me crazy was, I was really driven to find out why I put in as many hours as NHLers, but wasn't as good. Like, we've all heard the 10,000 hour rule, but I did my 10,000 hours. So why wasn't I there? And I found that the coaching I'd received up to that point only worked for a certain type of player. And, out of my research, I came up with a new style of training. And when I applied it to myself, after retiring for 2 years, I actually ended up making pro hockey and signed a 2-way deal in the KHL. And that's really why I'm here, is to share what I've discovered here and how players can use this today to just totally transform and change their trajectory of their development. So what did I discover along this path? Well, what I discovered was how old coaching methods hold most players back from their full potential. And I really discovered that there are specific untaught mechanics, patterns, and drills that can transform all player types, not just, the naturals, not just the ones who just happen to have it, but that can really transform all player types. And I also discovered that I love sharing these new drills, videos, and mechanics with players who are pursuing mastery of the game of hockey. And, that's really why I'm here. So here's what I discovered about old coaching methods. I was in my third season playing at UBC. I was in kinesiology studying all these things about biomechanics and motor learning and basically all the techniques for teaching sports skills, like all the science. I'm just like I'm just a huge nerd for this stuff. And I was getting real into it. And at the same time, I also realized that I just didn't have the skill to play in the NHL. I wondered why I spent just as much time practicing and training as Jamie Benn, who was a year ahead of me and grew up in Victoria too. So we were always on the same team every second year. But, it really drove me crazy. Like, why was he in the NHL and why was I not? And so, what happened out of that frustration was I asked a question that changed my life. And really, that's why I'm here today. And so I kind of charted this out. I'm like, okay, I'm like 22-ish, like 23. And, if I'm looking at where I'm at, I'm really about 5 years away from the NHL. Like if I was 15, I'd maybe make the NHL at 20, but I was quite a bit older. So I asked myself this question: how can I make the NHL in 6 months? And essentially, that's like a 10x improve, 10 times faster, right? How do you achieve your 5-year goal in 6 months? And that crazy thought removed limits from my thinking. It really changed the way that I was typically thinking and that everyone else was thinking. So instead of trying to make these little 10% improvements, maybe I'll train an extra 20 minutes tomorrow, I was now thinking about a 10x improvement, and it just totally reshaped how I was thinking. And so I rethought all of my training methods. I threw out everything that wasn't working for me, and I realized that we as hockey players do some really inefficient things. And if players follow the traditional coaching advice, they're almost guaranteed to underperform from their true potential. And so what I did to 10x my learning, the thought that occurred to me is there's all this video out there, and I'm not studying any of it, and I'm not moving like any NHLer, and I'm not doing anything about it. And so what I really started doing was I started watching and recording all these NHL games. And I clipped the parts of the games that I couldn't do. I was like, I definitely can't do that movement, whatever that is, or that pattern. I just can't do that. I know I can't. And then here's the magic, is I filmed myself at practice. And when I actually, because a lot of people aren't freak shows like this and do stuff like that, right? But I did, because I'm nuts. And when I actually compared my video to the NHLer's video, I was actually in for a huge shock, because my video looked absolutely nothing like an NHLer's. And, my movements were completely different than an NHLer's movements. So let that sink in for a second. I've been playing all these years and wanting to play in the NHL and thinking if I work hard, I'll get there. But my movements the whole time were different from an NHLer's movements. But no one had coached me on this, right? And that's what really frustrated me. There was no one anywhere who had said, oh yeah, this is what the NHLer does precisely with his knee angle here, blah, blah, blah. And traditional coaching seemed to say, well, you either move like an NHLer or you don't, right? You're either kind of destined for that path or you're not. And this to me is crazy. Most coaching doesn't even try to coach you on the mechanics that work. And then the coach blames you for not working hard enough or just not having it, or I don't know. But it's crazy. There's no one actually coaching this kind of stuff. So now, you guys might be like a much higher level pro than me. You might be much younger, you might be much older or less experienced with with this, but mechanics training still applies to you. Like my story here still applies to you, because here's how you traditionally go about improving your speed or your skating is, you go to power skating lessons, you train in the gym, doing squats or whatever. Now, here's why that's hard. Because it's like pedaling harder on a bike with a flat tire. If you want to actually go faster, don't get stronger, you fix the flat tire. And mechanics training really makes everything easier. It fixes your mechanics to be the most efficient in the world. So, when that happens, then your strength and power gains translate directly to the ice. And that's, actually where we're going to get into like the first secret that we're going to talk about in the case study here, which is secret number 1, which is precision beats power. Now imagine, take the sport of golf, right? And imagine you have like kind of like a beginner golfer, maybe intermediate golfer, maybe even an expert golfer. And you're like, hey, to really improve your handicap, your bench press needs to go up by, 50 pounds, right? Like their handicap might move if like they might be able to drive the ball like 1% further. But think of the effort needed to like get your bench press up 50 pounds. It's like that's going to take you like, depending how, you're training, like 4 to 6 weeks. Like, same thing for tennis. Like think of the game of tennis, right? It's a very technical sport, just like golf, right? Now imagine telling a tennis player, don't work on your stroke or footwork. Just lift weight and go to the gym. Like if you work harder, if you make sure you train every day, you'll get there. Like that would be absolutely insane, because the sports of golf and tennis are extremely precise, really require a ton of technique, right? So you'd never, ever, ever tell a tennis player, well, if you can add 50 pounds to your, your squat, you can, well, then you'll get that forehand, just absolutely dialed. It's insane. You would never do that with another sport. But here's the thing, is that hockey is such a technical sport, but we treat it like it's just a sport where if you work harder, you'll do better. And, this works if you're a natural. Like if you're a natural, you will rise to the top. And if not, too bad, right? Like, you worked hard, good for you, and then see you later. And what I realized, and this is why it's like the secret here, is that most coaches don't know and then don't teach NHL mechanics. And then most players never learn them and blame themselves for the failure. So really, like this secret here, precision beats power. Like I realized that like I now knew a secret about how players could skate faster without working harder. And the secret was not to just add more power in the gym. Like it's always, of course, better to have more strength and power if you can. But if you really want to move faster without working harder, it doesn't come from getting stronger or more powerful. It comes from being more precise. Now, the steps to doing this are simple but counterintuitive. 1 is study how NHLers move and determine their magic mechanics, their precise mechanics that are different from how everyone teaches and different from how everyone moves. Then what you do is you create drills that isolate their magic mechanics. And then you video compare yourself to see if you are moving like they move. And then get repetitions on those magic mechanics. And that really is the secret to getting more precise with your movements, that, we see other sports that rely on a ton of technique that they do, but hockey just seems to not think exists, right? So now the second secret here, the case study I want to go over, is that timing beats speed. And so I want to tell you of like this one time when I was in university, my coach told me, hey, you need to get in better shape. And this was a really confusing statement to me, because I finished first in my team's beep test. I was top of every fitness test, top 3 fastest on the ice. And so, like, I was essentially one of the fittest on the team. And so I asked him why he thought I needed to get in better shape. And he said, well, after every shift, you're bent over, you're breathing too hard. But, like, your teammate over there, like, they're not breathing at all. I'm like, huh. Like, with my science background, like, his reasoning didn't really make any sense. like what I realized out of that was that my mechanics were so inefficient. Like I was just skating all around the ice with like, like just fast, working really hard. And it was just exhausting me. And I was actually lucky that I was in the best shape on my team just so I could keep up with everyone else's mechanics. And that's when I realized an asymmetry is that the more errors you make in your movement, like with your timing, the harder you have to work. So it's not like, if you make one error, you have to work 2 times harder to like get it back. Like imagine if your timing's off and you lose the puck, right? But you're really fast, so you chase around after it for 30 seconds before you get it back. Well, that one movement error, that one like off timing, that one mistake costs like 10 to 20 times more effort. Like in an instant you lose the puck. Like it takes 1 second, right? The wrong timing, the wrong pass, the wrong play at the wrong time. And it takes like a split second, and then you got to spend like 20, 40 seconds to get it back. So that's when I realized like I could easily cut my effort back by like 10 times and improve my output if I stopped making these timing errors, like if my movement was more precise. And that's when I really started to like focus and get how important the precision of my movements was. And that's really like the second secret. Now the third secret to this whole thing of totally transforming your skating and changing how you develop and being the best skater on the ice is to discover your one thing. And I actually created this thing called the downhill skating system. And so I created these drills called downhill skating because it really like you talked about precision, like how do you move without without using more effort. And I wasn't really sure if they'd work. And then I learned this one mechanic called the punch turn. And we see people talk about the punch turn all the time on like Instagram and stuff, but I'm talking about like absolute punch turn obsession and mastery. Like I was watching it for like days on end, and I spent hours and hours dissecting Crosby's punch turn and learning it myself. And as soon as I learned that, I suddenly started having way more options in games. But what's weird, right, is that it didn't come from learning way more mechanics. Like it wasn't from doing a whole bunch of things. It was actually from just learning one mechanic. And, the one thing question is like, what is this one skill you can learn to make everything else easier or unnecessary? And, for me and for a lot of players, mastering the punch turn made everything else easier. Like it's like just like in secret number 2, I could always escape tight pressure. Like I didn't have to keep skating faster. It was now unnecessary for me to skate faster and faster because I could now escape the other way if I couldn't get around a player. And I realized that every player has a one thing at every moment. The one thing that will make everything easier or unnecessary. And discovering your one thing can literally cut years of training time. And, here's the secret inside of the secret, is that the NHL is like a fishbowl of one things. For example, Barzal dominates with his punch turn, Crosby with his 10-2, McDavid with his cross-unders, and McKinnon with his cadence. These are all their mechanical one thing. Now I realize that typical, and I call them drone coaches because they kind of drone on and say the same things they've always said. I realize that typical drone coaching teaches you what you've always been taught in a bunch of different ways, like a different set of patterns to skate around cones, right? Here's the thing, is that your one thing doesn't exist in the coaching you've always gotten. It exists inside the movement of NHL superstars, and that those movements are totally studyable, totally learnable, and you can actually do them when you get repetitions of magic mechanics. So I want to introduce you to really the case study before and after here of Sean O'Donnell. Okay, so this is Sean here, and really like the first guinea pig was me, right? And it was amazing to see how I could go from not making pro to like a two-way KHL deal. But of course, I was working with players locally and seeing great results with them. But Sean was actually the first pro I worked with. And, you know, the challenging part was he was on the other side of the country. And, you know, how was I? He's like, I want to learn all of this mechanic stuff. And I was like, oh, how do I do that? And, you know, here's his before and after video where you can actually see, I'm going to restart this all the way at the beginning. So you can just get the world of how yucky it was. And so that's before and that's after. You can see a totally different cadence, totally different level of smoothness. And, you know, really, really great results in that. And then here's Sean before as well. And here's him in a much more complicated drill, moving way faster, way more smoothly, and with way less effort. Absolutely, for sure. So isn't that cool? So I just really wanted to introduce you to, you know, Sean and really our work together because, like I said, he was across the country. And I had no clue how we're going to make a difference in his skating. But through technology and through video, we were able to do that. And it was so cool. And you know, he was really like my first guinea pig to go full tilt at that at pro. And you know, so you know, Sean was like my real first like pro guinea pig to test this out on and do this like across the continent. And really goes to show you what is possible when you're not thinking with limits, and what is actually possible for a lot of players in their development. So now let me ask you a question. If you followed what I was doing in secret number 1 and improved your precision instead of improving your power, and then you stopped trying to work harder and harder and instead started working smarter by reducing your movement errors like in secret number 2, and then you use secret number 3 to learn your one thing mechanic to get really comfortable with the most important and untaught mechanics, do you think you could be successful? You know, I want you to think about that. Like if you followed these things, do you think you could be successful? Well, I'm out of this video here. Thanks for getting to the end of it, because I want to actually offer you a really special opportunity to book your development breakthrough strategy session with a Train 2.0 coach right now. Now there's limited spots available because, you know, we're spending time coaching, and you know, but if this is something you want to do, if you think that using these secrets would have you be successful, then you're going to want to book your development breakthrough strategy session right now. It's a really great opportunity to discover what is holding your development back, discover your biggest performance blocks, and really learn how to increase the speed of your development. And so, you know, it's going to be about a 30-minute to 45-minute call, and we're going to go over those things. And, you know, you might get the opportunity to learn about our program, our Train 2.0 Academy that we have, and we'll go over if you're a good fit for that too. So, you know, if this is something that you're interested in pursuing, if you're really serious about taking things to the next level, then, you know, jump on a call with one of our coaches here and, you know, get that breakthrough in your development. And you know, you guys are going to have a great time on that call. You guys are going to learn a lot and really, really cause a breakthrough. So go book that call now. Thanks so much for watching this case study, and we'll chat with you soon.